Blog Talk Radio.
Attacking questions from Japan jump to navigation, search. Concerning freedom, contactees, the FIGU bylaws, group members, errors and atonement and other things. Copyright 1990 to 1993/2012 by Billy Meyer. This is an extract of the booklet. Only pages 16 to 20 are supplied out of 30 total. 6. The Japanese and the Chinese have come to Earth 6-7 million years ago, as it was explained to me by Ta during my visit in Switzerland. On the other hand, in issue number 74 of your pamphlet is written the following: the Japanese and the Chinese came to this Earth 25,978 years ago and are, therefore, a very young race. Which statement is actually correct? The type and format of the questions give the impression that Ta personally had spoken with the inquirer, and had given explanations and information. First of all, it must be clarified and the fact noted that, of course, Ta has not given any information or explanations to the inquirer in person, and he would never do so. However, all questions were answered exclusively by Billy, on Ta's behalf. The editor. It is correct that the Chinese and the Japanese human races on Earth are very young. If you calculate backward from the year 1990, they have only settled here on Earth 25,978 years ago, the time that denotes the final colonization on Earth. The background for the appearance of the Chinese and Japanese races is as follows. The two yellow races were created and lived in their original native land on the other side of the Milky Way, on the other side of the central sun of the galaxy, therefore. For this reason it is said that they came from the other side of the sun. Their native system was called the Lasans system, where they lived on planet KUDRA. Planet KUDRA was discovered by an expedition fleet from Lasan when it left the Lyra systems approximately 16 million years ago to conduct its research and search for human life on the other side of the Milky Way. In the process, the fleet came upon the yellow human KINTEN and NIIPER races who, on Earth, are now called Chinese KINTEN and Japanese NIIPER. Their expedition troops at the time brought roughly 4,000 people back to Lasan, whereupon they were settled on various planets, which was their wish. As normally occurs, the population increased, and in the course of thousands and millions of years, the peoples became considerably more populous, and eventually occupied 5 planets in the Lasan alliance of planets. Then, approximately 6.7 million years ago, these peoples fought wars and had power struggles amongst themselves, whereupon a number of individuals from each race united and fled in 9 spaceships. During their flight they followed a well-known path that had been discovered in the Lyra system by the old Lasans around 22 million years ago before their time, when the Lasans had followed a fragment of a planet and a destroyer planet that had devastated several home planets of the races in the Lyra system. This path led the refugees to an enclave of the galaxy beyond the galaxy's spiral arm, to a sun system with 2 wonderful planets capable of supporting life, namely, to the Sol system and Earth. On this planet Earth there existed in former times a gigantic landmass, an island, in a world-encompassing ocean, and this is where the refugees settled, in the remote northeastern region of the former single continent, the Asia of today. The planet had already produced independent life some millions of years before, including that of human life forms. Furthermore, in some regions they also encountered groups of human beings, whose ancient ancestors had also fled from the Lyra systems. The newly arriving descendants of the former KINTEN and NIIPER races, numbering a total of nearly 38,000 people, settled in the northeast portion of the Earth's former single continent. However, their colonization took place at a time when powerful upheavals and transformations were taking place on Earth, which meant that the climatic conditions were subject to these changes as well. The newcomers were not prepared for this and were unable to defend themselves against the forces of nature. Their spaceships quickly deteriorated, for they were unable to withstand the corrosive effects of Earth's atmosphere. After only a few years, when the catastrophe befell them, the ships were useless and inoperative, and every one of the newcomers perished. This then explains how the yellow races arrived here on Earth for the first time 6.7 million years ago, while being, at the same time, only latecomers of ancient inhabitants from the Lyra system who had first settled on the still barren, yet really beautiful Earth and planet Malona some 22 million years ago. Meanwhile, the KINTEN and NIIPER peoples were leading a life of degeneration and excess on planet KUDRA in the Lasan system on the other side of the sun of the Milky Way. They lost all their restraints, morals and traditions. They no longer observed the laws and commandment of creation and nature. They procreated in an unreasonable, unlawful and despicable manner, which resulted in an overpopulation of planet KUDRA, whose inhabitants could no longer feed and sustain themselves. Consequently, millions of spaceships were fully loaded with people and sent on a voyage into the vastness of the universe, to find new living space and new inhabitable planets. Many billions of people left the planet in this manner, beginning endless voyages throughout the universe, getting lost in the process, and gradually dying miserably when deadly epidemics raged in the overcrowded ships, cruelly killing billions of refugees before even the first inhabitable planet had been found. Death and misery raged until only a small, pitiful heap of human beings remained, 418,000 in number. It was this group who then found their way to the Lyra system and planet Lasan, where peoples and very distant descendants of their ancient ancestors were already living. The wayfarers found their way to Lyra only through a fortunate circumstance, namely, the discovery that ancient coordinates were located in a coordination computer, which pointed out solar systems with habitable planets that were, however, far beyond the other side of the Milky Way. A planet known as Lasan existed there and was already populated. The coordinate delineations had been established prior to the departure of the emigrants' ships, via a central computer that had stored all available data and coordinates in the ship's memory banks, including also those of the Lyra systems and their planets. The database information had been stored in the central computer memory since time immemorial, and had been accepted by predecessors, after having been input around 13.5 million years earlier by those responsible for the Lasan expedition. Hence, the KUDRA immigrants finally found a new home on planet Lasan, which they reached approximately 2.4 million years ago when we calculate back from the present modern age. The two races settled on Lasan and quickly increased in numbers, which soon necessitated another immigration. The inhabitants found space in the Lasan alliance of planets that aided them in their dispersion, and in the course of time these people were able to take over 2 other planets for their home worlds, which had been designated to them by the alliance of planets. Soon the time came, however, when groups formed who wanted to venture further into the universe, to research and seek new living space and additional human life forms. This is the habit and idiosyncrasy of human beings throughout the entire universe, for they feel the urge for adventure and the desire to evolve, explore and penetrate to the root of things. It is a process peculiar to all human life. It breaks forth especially with full force and without restraint when reasoning and intellect are in the process of developing fully. When comprehension has not as yet progressed to the point of having attained the knowledge that only the power of the spirit and of consciousness are the highest achievements, which lead to true knowledge, absolute logic, wisdom, and to creative love. However, a human being who has not yet been able to recognize and comprehend this, will eagerly seek to hunt for the new and the unknown, without realizing that everything is dwelling within them, longing to be awakened, as long as one knows how to accomplish this. man on Earth will not have reached the point for a long time where he comprehends and understands this truth. This is why he believes he recognizes untruths in truth, however, and regards himself as greater, more knowledgeable and logical than he truly is. Misunderstandings may be one of the contributing factors for these illogical human actions, but this does not exempt an individual from his innate responsibility to think for himself and to explore any truth from the example of truth set in nature and in life. It is his inherent bounden duty, for the sake of truth, that laws and commandments of creation are to be acknowledged and lived in complete freedom and self-responsibility for all things in life. All this without the delusional notion that as an individual who lacks knowledge one is superior to those who have gained the knowledge and are wise, and that one can live according to one's own laws, not to mention that many of those who lack knowledge and intelligence, who are megalomaniacs and know-it-alls, think in their illusory wisdom that they are indeed above creation. Well then, 25,978 years ago, going back from the year 1990, a major group of searching, determined and adventurous people from the KINTEN and NIIPER races united with each other to travel in an expedition into the vast universal space. Their first goal was identical to the previously established ancestral goal set down many millions of years ago, to reach the Sol system with its planets Melona and Earth. The first planet the fur-bearers came upon was a massive fragment only, a ring of asteroids orbiting the Sun, while planet Earth was already in full bloom. Encircling the Earth, as a moon, was the very fragment from a Lasan group planet, which had been previously ripped away more than 20 million years past, by the destructive force of the dark planet, the Destroyer. Thereafter, it had been pushed through the vastness of interstellar space, until its path decelerated in the Sol system because of planet Uranus' influence, only to glide then in moderate speed toward Earth, where it was entrapped by Earth's influence and has circled the blue planet as a moon ever since. The KINTEN and NIIPER space travelers, totaling nearly 680,000 human beings in number, did not land with their spaceships on Earth but, instead, had themselves taken to Earth's surface by robot-controlled devices. Only a few hundred individuals remained on board the ships that floated in open space. Those individuals who had landed on Earth felt that the planet was inhabitable and settled in those regions which are now known as the Far Eastern Chinese countries. Thereafter they separated according to their race and migrated across the land and onto islands. They decided to remain permanently on this planet, and because of this they invited the others who had remained on the spaceships to settle on this planet as well. In the meantime, however, these space-bound individuals had changed their minds and decided to search for their true, ancient motherland on the other side of the Milky Way, the Lasan system and planet KUDRA. Subsequently they guided their spaceships away from Earth and began the lengthy voyage to the other side of the Sun. With the exception of an unmanned robot spacecraft, not one ship or single human being reached this goal. Somewhere en route in the Milky Way, the ships and their passengers became lost and were never heard from again, and their whereabouts have remained an unsolved mystery until now. The elements of this event were only discovered by the Pleiadians within the past few years, when they found data in still intact archive memory centers on planet KUDRA, which had become colonized by a normal population long before. The data, in part, came from the robot ship that had been sent as forerunner from Earth to KUDRA. According to this discovery, therefore, the yellow race came to Earth 25,978 years ago as the youngest of Earth inhabitants, where they procreated and formed new peoples, who still exist even today. As has been the case with all other races and travelers from the depths of the universe, they have lost all knowledge of their heritage, just as the remaining nearly 219.8 million people have done who are of extraterrestrial origin. As a rule, they, too, no longer have any knowledge whatsoever of their actual origin, for they live as human beings among other human beings on Earth, and are part of an evolution, as well as an adaptation to terrestrial life.